Hello everybody, welcome back to Cure for the Common Game. Today on the Eyes of March, we are going to talk about day number 73 of 100 Days of Magic. And today let's look at Onslaught. And I'm telling you what, we got a lot to talk about. Onslaught came out in September of 2002. It had 350 cards, 110 each, common, uncommon, and rare, with 20 basic lands. Ooh, man, they made big sets big back in the day. Anyway, this was, I believe, the first true tribal set. Yeah, they had done tribal things, hit and miss here and there, but nothing like Onslaught. This really set the tone for what come to be expected of tribal cards. So here we go. Very first card, Causal Vengeance. Now, we had got a Wrath here or there, but this, to get artifacts, creatures, and enchantments, and it cycled. Cycling was a big thing through this set. It just, I mean, nowadays, this card is not expensive by any means because it's been printed in a bunch of supplementary products. But it is quite the good card, especially when you need it. And, you know, if all your stuff happens to be indestructible, I'm just saying. Astral Slide. Now, Astral Slide saw a lot of tournament play, and I've kind of been waiting for, you know, since the EDH thing has blown up, for somebody to kind of take this and run with it in our format. Because, I don't know, it does seem like a lot of work, I'll admit. When you were able to have 4 of these in a deck, yeah, but able to have one, and you've got, what, Idyllic and Enlightened. I mean, you don't have a whole lot of ways to tutor this card up, but you cycle. Now, odds are you're playing Fluctuator, so your cycling is cheaper, but you essentially blink out a creature and it comes back at the end of turn, so you can, I don't know, wipe the board, and then, you know, you cycle, save your dudes, wipe the board, they come back. Everybody's having fun, right? I don't know. It may seem like a lot of work. I don't think I'm the person to do it. If y'all know somebody that's successfully broken this in EDH, holla at your boy. Now, Catapult Master. Now, the chosen white tribe was soldiers. The primary white tribe in this set was soldiers. And all of the tribes that it supported had a master. I'm just going to call them all generic masters. Tap 5 of my creature type to do a thing. And now, while tapping 5 soldiers to exile target creature may seem, I don't know, you might have better things to do with those 5, like, I don't know, beat face with them. But if you're removing a troublesome creature from the game, it's kind of worth it. Jareth Leonin Titan. Now, this dude is super blocker. I just wish he had vigilance. Because, you know, when he blocks, he gets +7/+7. But you've invested 6 mana in a 4/7 body that you can give protection from. And, yeah. Homeboy needs vigilance. That's why I'll make that happen. Now, mobilization. I thought for sure mobilization would surge in popularity once we got Anointed Procession. And we got just, you know, white become another token generating color. But maybe I'm the only one. Maybe 3 mana is a little much for a 1/1 soldier. But it's repeatable, and there's no downside. And your soldiers have vigilance. And hold on. I don't know if Jareth is a soldier or not. Probably not. I think he's a Titan. But anyway, Oblation. Oblation was widely regarded for a long time as the definitive removal spell in EDH. Because it worked offensively, it worked defensively. If somebody was going to exile your Junt, you just shuffled it back in and then you got to draw the 2 cards. Or if something was indestructible and they hit their one-shot robot, you could just shoot and it's gone. I love it. Shared Triumph is another anthem that I am also running in Tribal Griffins. I guess you can tell Tribal Griffins is kind of, you know, my pet deck, I guess. Win together, die alone. Boy, that's not a, yeah. But anyway, it's 2 mana for an anthem, a tribal anthem. Sigil of the New Dawn. Now, whenever a creature is put into your graveyard from play, you may pay 2 if you do return that card to your hand. What? Yeah, I've never seen this card cast. Ever. I've never seen it in anybody's deck list. I don't know. Maybe I'm just not seeing it. Maybe I'm not looking at the right sites. I don't know. I'd be curious to know how many decks this is in on EDH Rec. But, wow. The ability to sacrifice creatures and spend 2 mana to get them back. Because it doesn't have to be white, so you can totally put this in your white X deck if you're running white-black or, whatever. It just seems like a great card. Weathered Wayfarer. Ooh, buddy. Now, in order white to get land search, somebody else has got to have more than you do, which that's kind of where white lives now. But a 1 mana to cast and 1 mana to activate, and it's repeatable. This is what it's all about. Arcane is the Omnipotent, or as some would say, Omnipotent. I don't know. So 6 mana, 3/4. You tap to recall. I mean, you're drawing 3 cards. And then, of course, you can spend 4 mana to bounce him out of harm's way. So there's so much here that is just amazing. I can tell you the very first card I put in him is that, what's that artifact guy? A Phyrexian something or other, I think. 5 mana, you draw a card, everybody takes a damage. I don't know, I've got like 1,000 of them. Anyway, Arcane is pretty decent mono blue because it draws you into kind of whatever you want. Artificial Evolution. Now, I love magical hacky, sleight of mindy kind of cards that change the text. But now this changes creature types with another creature type. So the new creature type can't be legend or wall. I'm pretty sure that legend is not on there anymore. It's just wall. Because legend's a super type now. But anyway, it's, I don't know. I love doing stuff like, oh, no, your zombies don't have Swamp Walk. I think your cephalids now have Swamp Walk. Or you pick your, yep, all boars get +1/+1 in flying. That's right. I don't know. I just love stuff like that because this is a card nobody sees coming. As well they probably should. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's a really iffy slot to put in your deck just to be funny. But y'all know that's the kind of thing I do. Blatant Thievery. Now, I understand the words that are on the card, but what I read is 7 mana, put a target on your forehead. I mean, you get to steal something of your choice from each player. Now, you're probably not playing this unless everybody's got, or most everybody has something that you want. Yeah. Pretty decent card. A lot of times it equates to 7 mana win the game. Now, I have cast Future Sight more. I was on that Future Sight train for so many years, and I rode on that train alone. I get it. I know I did. But I have always thought this was an amazing card. It draws you cards without drawing you cards. And yes, it is 5 mana. But, I mean, this builds up your hand size. Because number one, you're probably not playing any lands from your hand. You're just going to play them off the top of your library. Because there's no feel-bad moment than playing a land and then playing this spell off the top of your deck and then flipping up a land and going, "Aw, I could have, aw." So, Future Sight is, I love it, and I love the bluffing factor that they can see your whatever you've got up. You know what I'm saying? Oh, that's a removal spell he's got. That's a counter spell he's got. Is he going to use it on this? I don't know. Anyway, I like Future Sight. Ixidor, Reality Sculptor. Now, this is supposed to, I can tell you the way we're supposed to build him, since he's a wizard legend. We're supposed to do, morph creatures, face down creatures, and do all the cool stuff with morph stuff. That ain't what I did. Y'all know what I did. I completely botched this deck. Now, I have a cycle of 5 decks up here on the wall. They're all finished. And Inquisitor just so happens to be the only blue legendary creature that starts with the letter I. And what I was doing was it was a deck building challenge. Somebody challenged me that I couldn't build a deck with all cards starting with the same letter. And I piped up and said, I can do 5, one for each color. But the problem is the basic land. So for blue, of course, is island. So I had to pick something that started with the letter I. Now, out of all 5 of the decks, Inquisitor is probably the weakest deck. Season is probably the best deck, the black one, because S is such a common letter. And I had to use S for swamp. But anyway. Supreme Inquisitor is the tap 5 untapped wizards guy. And to extract 5 cards from somebody's deck, that's pretty good. Because, wizards, typically, if we're running tribal wizards, we got a bunch of them little jokers running around. Trade secrets. First off, I'll get it out of the way. This card's banned. And it took me a while to understand why it was banned. I ran it. Every copy I owned was in a deck. And I thought I had got them all out when it hit the banned list. And I drew one and I was like, oh man, guys, this is banned. I gotta take it out. I just replaced it with an island. And I read it and I was like, I don't know why they banned it. And I read it again and I was like, you could make a deal with somebody in game that busts this card up. Okay. I'm going to let you draw 2. You let me draw 4. And we're going to repeat this 4 times, 6 times, twice, however many. Or else I'm going to counter your next X spells, or I'm going to do this, or as part of a deal. Well, I won't attack you if. And that's how I can understand it, is it almost turns a game of EDH into 2HG. So, I don't know. That's my philosophy. Sheldon, if you're watching, let me know. It's a fun card, but I can see how it can be abused. But I don't know. It seems like there are some cards that are a little more abusable than trade secrets. Wheel and Deal. I like to think of Wheel and Deal as our first friend or foe card, because you get to choose any number of target opponents to discard their hand and draw 7 cards. Now, obviously, this gets played a lot in Nekuzar style. You take damage for what you draw decks. Now, keep in mind, you can't do it. It says opponents, so we don't get to draw 7, whoever cast it. We get to draw a card. There are times when you can do it. There are times when you can use this as a reward. Or there are times you use it to nuke somebody's perfectly crafted hand that they have tutored for or that they have set up. That's a thing too. Cover of Darkness. As I recall, this is the only anthem type, or I hate to keep using the word anthem, the only global enchantment of yours that actually grants fear. Fear is, it was kind of the original version of Intimidate, but fear just meant it can't be blocked except by artifact creatures and or black creatures. So that's a good chunk out there that just can't block your creatures. And for 2 mana to give your tribe fear, I've cast Cover of Darkness on zombies and rats and specters many times. False Cure. This is about as close to a black counterspell as we got. But it's not a counterspell. I mean, this you play this in response to them playing that big, sweeping, life-gaining spell. Okay. You want to gain 15? It's going to cost you. Gravespawn Sovereign is the 5 zombie thing. This one, I mean, it's not bad. 6 mana is a little steep for the 3/3, but let's face it, we got it. 6 mana is not a deal to us. But to put any creature from any graveyard, it's not bad for 5 zombies, because y'all know zombies aren't just 1 or 2 on the board. When we go zombies, we go zombies. Head games. Target opponent puts the cards from his or her hand on top of their library, and you get to give them a new hand, same number of cards, and you pick it. This card has won games. Not players that play it, but the card, I think, is just amazing. There are times when you are hurting on creatures just as well as somebody else, and you know, player C has pulled out way ahead and they are dominating. And you just give your opponent a hand of all removal. You know, here's your 3 board wipes. Have fun. There are other uses, of course, but that's... Nantuko Husk. This was a set that gave it to us. A free creature sacrifice outlet, which doesn't happen a whole lot, especially not at common. And they have printed this guy many, many times. So he's pretty good for when you just absolutely positively got to sacrifice a creature. It's a zombie, which is relevant. It's an insect, which is semi-relevant. And, you know, turning it into a 4/4 arbitrarily because you're wanting to sack your creature is not bad either. Patriarch's Bidding. This is the ultimate in tribal cards here. We had Traumatized Bidding. That's a thing, because, you know, you had all creatures of the same type. You traumatized yourself, or, you know, everybody drew and discarded a bunch, or you wrathed, or whatever. Patriarch's Bidding was the way to get them back. Now, siphonmind, generally in black, when we have to draw cards, when we pay mana to draw cards, we're also paying some life. But this is not bad. Now, granted, it doesn't work if somebody doesn't, you know, if they're all hell-bent, but assuming everybody has at least 1 card in hand, you're spending 4 mana to draw 3 cards with no life payment. That's not a lot different than Ambition's cost, except you don't have to pay the 3 life. Viscera the Dreadful, a Gorgon. Tap, destroy target creature. And, of course, they were scared of regeneration, so we can't let rocks regenerate for some reason. She's not bad. 6 mana 5/5 flyer. I mean, that's kind of a baseline on what we would pay for a dragon. 6 mana 5/5 flyer. But then the tap to destroy target creature. She does, obviously, I mean, she is really black at 3 pips. So well, if she's your commander, we're playing mono black anyway, so it doesn't matter how many pips she's got if we're mono colored. Aggravated Assault. This one is beautiful. Oh my gosh, it's a favorite of mine. The wording here is beautiful. So for 3 to cast, 5 to use, you untap all creatures you control. So you get to untap all of them. And after this phase, there's an additional combat phase, followed by an additional main phase. So things that trigger during your main phases, or at the beginning of your main phase, or as long as it doesn't say pre-combat main phase, you're probably pretty good. But you can only play this at any time you can play a sorcery. So enough red mana, and you're just like, okay, I'm going to line up about 4 combat steps. I want you to, each one of y'all, Blightsteel at you this combat, Blightsteel at you that combat. Now, also, the beautiful part about multiple combat steps is that if you have, like I ran multiple combat Aurelia that I showed to Josh through the Commandering podcast, which, by the way, if you're not watching the Commandering podcast, it's something that, listening to the Commandering podcast, those guys, Phil and Shivim, they're awesome. I feel like they literally have their finger on the pulse of EDH. They do a lot of interviews with Olivia Gilbert Hicks has been on there. She is an amazing cosplayer. They do riders. They've had Sheldon on there. They've had, it's a good podcast. They've been going for a long time. And maybe one day Maybe you'll hear my voice on there. I don't know. But in that Aurelia deck, one thing to remember with multiple combat steps, and here with aggravated assault as well, is that anytime you get a bonus from attacking, that bonus is typically till end of turn. And so if you get, whenever you declare a creature as an attacker, it gets +2. Well, you're just going to keep mounting up that +2. So the 5 is going to become 7, it's going to become 9, it's going to become 11 with each time you declare it as an attacker, which is just so good. I don't think a lot of people realize. Brightstone Ritual, like I said, Goblin is the red tribe that's supported in this set, and this is insane. Now, there is a Goblin Storm deck that I played in my what was it? I think it was right around the time I started this channel, 2.5 years ago. I played a Legacy tournament, and I played Stupid Goblins is what I called it. It was Goblin Storm. I don't think there was a rare in the whole deck. And I ran Brightstone Ritual because there are times when you have to cast your Empty the Warrens a little sooner than you would like to because of lack of mana, and you're only going to get like 4 goblins off of it, or 6, and then if you've got the one left over, you cast the Brightstone and you just keep going. So I don't know. I didn't win that tournament. There was we went down to Memphis for it. I think there was 40, 50 people in it. I think I won 2 games the whole day. I was happy with it. Because the 2 games I won, I didn't feel like I was supposed to win. It just magically happened. Mass Hysteria is a good card, too. Dragon Roost. 6 mana to cast and 7 to use. And I firmly believe that's why this card doesn't see more play. Because you get more or less a vanilla dragon. It's 5/5 and it's flying. But how many times have you begun your turn and went to untap and had 7 open? Yeah, it doesn't happen a lot, but how many times would you have to activate this before you felt like you were getting a value? Or how much mana if you just, stumbled across an obscene amount of mana, like a mana geyser or what have you? I don't know. It's something to think about. Goblin Pile Driver is crazy good. Pro Blue matters. Not to Cyclonic Rift, but +2 for each other attacking goblin. And that's something that goblins do, is they just attack. That's what you want to do with goblins, unless you're, doing something else. Speaking of attacking, I present to you the Sorcery Speed Goblin Overrun without Trample. Yeah, that's what it is. This is a win condition. This is a sorcery because all your goblins are dying at the end of turn. So we need to make sure that we're going to win this turn, that we have enough goblins and we're going to give them all +3, because if not, bad times are a-coming. Gratuitous Violence is, I think, one of the better ones. Now, it only doubles damage a creature you would control. Now, it does say deal damage. It doesn't say combat damage. So your little plinkers, you can get in for 2. But I love it that it's so personal. It's just my stuff. It's not double all damage to everybody like Furnace of Wrath. It is just my creatures. Insurrection is 8 mana win the game. I 99% of the time I've ever seen this card cast, that's exactly what's happened. It is 8 mana win the game. I get all the creatures, they get all the haste, and then I'm going to probably sacrifice them all to the Ashnod's altar when I'm done, because I'm that guy. Whew. Mana Echoes, it's kind of different. A creature comes into play under your control, so tokens matter here. You may add 1 mana to your mana pool for each creature you control that shares a type with it. Now, here's a question. Is there a mana : token? Colorless mana : token. I know we talked about mobilization earlier, but that requires a specific white, as where, this could get really good really quick. Rorik's Bladewing. Yeah, why is it legendary, people? Why? 6 mana, 6/5 flying haste. I guess that was good enough to be legendary. Yeah. A lot of people do like mono red dragons. I don't know. Biorhythm also banned, but I do want to take a moment to say that there is a creature from, I want to say Tarsier block. Danny was playing him last week. I can't remember. And it has an 11 mana activated ability that's Biorhythm. Yeah. Biorhythm's really good. Too good, actually, because your elf, if Biorhythm was legal, I would just play elves all the time and turbo this thing out on turn 3 and lose lots of friends and destroy the format. But yeah, that's pretty much what I do. Okay, next card. Centaur Glade. Now 4 mana, 5 to cast, 4 to use, to get a 3/3 is, that's kind of a lot more understandable. It's a 4 mana activation to pump out 3/3s. It's not terrible, but it is in the color that has the biggest ability to produce mana. So the Glade's a little easier than the Roost to make work. Now, Chain of Acid is one of my favorites. Y'all have seen this in a couple decks. I will. So this was a 5-card cycle. There was a chain of, all the 5 colors. But the green one was always my personal favorite simply because, man, I'm always probably going to pick the second best thing on the board, assuming I don't have the best thing on the board, And that way, that gives whoever my target is a chance to get something else. That way, I've essentially got 2 permanents for my 1 card. Elvish Guidance. Now, this is an enchant land, and I feel like the reason why it doesn't see more play than it does is elves really don't need a help to generate mass tons of mana, but it is a decent card if you are in big mana elves. Enchantress's Presence. Now, this did not see a reprint until Commander 18. Yeah, those are the only 2 versions of it. It's just an enchantment version of the Enchantress. You play enchantment, you draw a card. I don't understand what took so long to reprint it, but I'm glad they did. Thank you. Explosive Vegetation is one of those cards that kind of, how you see people, it's like there are 2 kinds of people. There are Xbox, there are PlayStation, there's Coke, and there's Pepsi. There's pro-explosive vegetation and anti-explosive vegetation. It seems like everybody falls on one side of that fence or another, but historically speaking, 4 mana to get to ramp 2 lands, because you're going to untap with 6 mana. There are arguably better versions, but if you're like me, if a deck wants 1, it's going to want all of them. Heedless One. The ones were of the appropriate tribe in that color, and it counted the number of that creature type. Like here, it counts the number of elves, and it has the green keyword ability Trample. Kamal, he's a 4/3, and a target land becomes a 1/1 creature till end of turn. It's still a land. My favorite thing to do with this is when I don't want someone to wrath, I can actually hold their lands hostage. Now, granted, you have to kind of walk the fine line. You're not wanting to beat them down, because if they're dying, they don't have a care in the world about losing their lands if they don't have to die anymore. But you can keep your creatures around to beat other people up, and they are fine with it, because you've got Kamal, and at a moment's notice, if they cast that Wrath of God, you can turn all their lands into dudes, and they're just in sad, sad shape. Oh, and he's got Overrun. Overrun. So if elves is your jam, maybe you're running druids, and you all know elf druids tap for mana, and you can just, shenaniganery. Speaking of auras, I realized we weren't speaking of auras. It's a terrible segue, but Mythic Proportions is one. I've never seen this. I've never even cast it. There's that weird blue aura from Future Sight that aura swaps. I thought that was kind of funny. Generally, once you're talking this big of a creature enchantment, the conscription gets the nod. But really, to give something +8/+8 in trample just says, I'm making something a win condition here. Silvo's Rogue Elemental. 8/5 Regenerator for 6. Now, this is what I'm talking about. This is the curve I like. 6 for an 8 power. So definitely member of the 3-hit club. It's a good card. It's just mono green, and that's what we got to work with. Steely Resolve, the ultimate green tribal card. I mean, choose a tribe, they get Shroud. So good. So good. I love it. I use it in as many decks as every one I own is in a deck. Tribal Unity here again. Every one of these I own is in a deck because it doesn't matter if you're running Centaurs or... Ooh... I've got an elf deck or two that's got it in there because they produce mana, and it gets ridiculous when you can pump 10 mana into this joker. Now, Weird Harvest is kind of different. You search for X creatures and put them in your hand. Now, this is the creature tutor that you need. If you have to have 2 or 3 creatures for your assembling your board state for whatever, and you don't really care what anybody else is out, this is probably the card you want. Well-Wisher. I can't tell you how much life I have gained off of Well-Wisher in my lifetime of playing cards, but it's been a bunch. Wirewood Pride is the giant growth we didn't know we needed until we got it. And in our format, there is a ton of elves, or can be in Elf Tribal. Now, Cryptic Gateway, I really like, but I really like it for other tribes because nothing's cooler than tapping 2 dinosaurs to put another dinosaur into play. Oh, man, it makes me excited. Or just, I don't know, just big random stuff. I'm going to tap these 2 Eldrazi Scions to put in Ulamog because they're all Eldrazi. Dream Chisel, here again, if you can make enough copies of this, and copying artifacts is kind of an easy thing to do. There's several cards that do it. You can eventually get face-down creatures free to play. I'm sure that's not abusable at all, right? Now, it took me years to learn how to play Riptide Replicator. I was always wanting to dump a ton of mana into it, but then I realized, no, I just want to put X = 1. Because as soon as we got Proliferate, things got interesting. Yeah, if you want to cast it and use it that turn, then you're paying 9 to get a 1/1, but odds are you're casting it for 5, and you're just going to chill and proliferate, and then proliferate again, and, get your value out of it. Slate of Ancestry is about the best white card draw spell there is. Or red card draw spell for that matter, because if you're running White Weenie or Angels or Goblins or whatever, I mean, it works for any color, but there's a good chance you're just not going to have a hand to discard if you are committing to the board like those style decks do, and it really helps. There's a cycle of 5 cycling lands. I didn't want to say cycle too many times, but these cycle for a specific color, not like the Urza Block ones that cycled for 2 generic. But these cycle for whatever color that they produce. They do come to play tapped, and there's 5 of them. I picked this one because it was first alphabetically, but Bloodstained Mire. This was the set that gave us fetches. Now, it gave us 5 friendly color fetches. We would get the other 5 years later. But the Fetchland cycle is not something I have to sell y'all on. This is one of the best cycles of lands to ever exist in the game. I don't care what the format is. It is an amazing, amazing cycle of lands. You can go get your original duels. You can get your shocks. That's just about what they're used for. I've seen them used as just deck thinning devices in single color decks before. I mean, It's crazy. However, you want to talk about a feel-bad moment? When somebody stifles your activation here. Whew. Now, there was also a cycle of lands that interacted with the tribe, like clerics had one and soldiers had one. I picked the goblin one just because it was, I don't know why. But they all had a tap for a colorless, and then activation something about that tribe. Now, Grand Colosseum, I absolutely love. It does come into play tapped. And the most popular comparison here is City of Brass because it's mana of any color and 1 damage to you. However, this comes into play tapped, but it also produces the colorless so that you don't have to hurt all the time if you don't just need that specific color. I love the Grand Colosseum. And that is what we've got for Onslaught. Wow, we're 36 minutes in. I do appreciate y'all watching. Y'all let me know what you think, and I think we will see y'all tomorrow.